You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Mike.
And I'm Justin.
And this is episode 104, Shantae Tunes.
I think we missed an opportunity to just call this Shantoons.
Shantoons. Ooh, I dig it. Yeah, but then people would think that it's about a guy named Sean. So that wouldn't work. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are focusing on that Half-Genie hero that has had a number of games and an old one being done by Limited Run somewhat soon.
Yeah,
the
the
one that never came out.
Shantae Advance recently got announced as being created or returning from the dead, basically.
Right.
It's going to be really cool. I'm super stoked for that. I'm a huge Shantae fan. I love all the games. Even the last game, it's still a good game, even though it doesn't have Jake Kaufman's mighty soundtrack. But,
right.
Which we'll get into, of course. Today is all about Shantae celebrating her games and franchise. We'll talk a little bit about the creation of the series, who made it, and the development studio and everything. And of course, we're going to talk about the amazing tunes that just completely envelop this series.
I can't wait.
Yeah. I'm stoked. I'm psyched. I'm pumped. Everything and more.
I'm revved up.
Yeah. I'm ret to go.
Ret
to go. That's a Shantae thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, she says, ret to go. This first track that we played was from Shantae, the Game Boy Color original release. Mm-hmm. And this was the 2002 release date, as far as the year goes. Burning Town was the name of the track, and it's by Jake Kaufman. This is a name that you will be hearing over and over and over and over and over again, so get used to it.
Yeah. At least 8 songs, or 8 other songs that we're going to play are going to be by him.
Mm-hmm. So this is kind of like the quintessential well known. This is like the Bloody Tears of Shantae, as far as like what song you immediately think of when you think of Shantae. In my eyes, at least.
It's Burning Town?
Is Burning Town, yes. Okay. It's been redone on a number of the games. Half-Genie Hero, it was called like Neo Burning Town or something like that. But it's essentially the same, kind of Arabian style tune. I am a sucker for Arabian music in video games. I don't know what it is. Prince of Persia, we talked about this on the live episode, on the Sands episode in June. We did. That cadence, that note styling. I love all types of music that feature it too. Like not just electronic, not just dance, not just techno, not just classical, like in a movie or anything, not just metal, like anything basically. Like you throw in an Arabian scheme for the music, and I'm a hook, line, and sinker.
It's kind of an interesting tactic that is very easy to use on Western folks. Because most people hear that type of music and immediately their mind goes, exotic of some sort.
Yes.
And that's just because of the way that they do some of their music. They play a lot with discord or dissonance and the notes between notes, because like what we are used to in the West is, like a piano or any of our other instruments, they play certain notes that are at specific frequencies, and you generally don't get things outside of like the trombone or like guitars without frets and stuff like that that really do any of those other notes in between. You tune them to specific notes and frequencies, but in a lot of Middle Eastern music, especially with singing, they slide up and down, and they play more with those frequencies in between the notes that we're used to.
Yes. Sliding is the perfect word to describe it. Almost like a slithering in a way, which kind of fits with the motif as well. I don't know. What do you think of the song?
So I am not as familiar with the Shantae series. I have played Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, and I've played a little bit of Risky's Revenge. I don't remember where.
Okay. Probably on a DSi or
I would imagine
DS Lite. Or no, be the DSi.
DSi or the
3DS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. But either way, I've enjoyed them, and I also enjoy this style of music. So all the things that I enjoyed on the other games is present in this.
Yeah. And it's worth noting, we're going to be talking about the original release dates for these games, but these games have been ported to death elsewhere. So they're all on the Switch, they're all on Xbox, they're all on PS4, PS5, or I think they're coming to PS5 slowly but surely. So trust me when I say Shantae is very much prevalent to this day, is honestly the flagship indie title, in my opinion, in terms of revitalizing the AA studios, that idea of AA studios, indie studios, because Way Forward, the developer, started out, they were an indie developer.
Yeah.
They were working on games mostly for the Game Boy Color, just very small games that were releasing a lot of licensed stuff. They ended up, making their first original game in terms of series, their own IP was Shantae.
Yeah.
As far as a character of this caliber. Nothing else really caught on for them outside of that. They were doing stuff like Sabrina the Teenage Witch and stuff like that. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of those games were actually pretty well done. There's a sports game, it's like Extreme Sports something or other. But yeah, this is really where they shined, and it was all thanks to a married couple, Aaron and Matt Bozon. The impression was that it was Matt Bozon's character, but he later on would correct, every time this was brought up in interviews, he would be like, no, my wife was the one that created Shantae. In terms of the character and everything. So Matt essentially just took the character, and then they worked together to create this world, and with Shantae, who's a half genie, not a full genie, half genie, and she is a guardian of her land, which is called Scuttletown.
Right.
It's kind of the whole area is called Sequin land, but she's just basically protecting it from bad guys. One of which is her arch nemesis named Risky Boots, a very risky boots. Let's move into my first pick, which is again from Shantae. This is the Game Boy Color release, which we just talked about from 2002. This is Zombie Caravan, and again by Jake Kaufman. Thanks for joining us back on our Shantae Tunes episode. That was Zombie Caravan from the first Shantae game. And again, composed by Jake Kaufman. What are your thoughts on this one?
This was really bopping. So right off the bat, I got techno vibes.
Yes.
Very
that thumpy boom, boom,
yep.
boom.
Very like late 90s, early 2000s techno. There's a couple of points there. It didn't last for the entire song. There's a couple points there where it got kind of like a spy movie vibe.
Okay.
Which is interesting because I assume Zombie Caravan is related to Roddy Tops, and I don't remember Roddy Tops. Like she's not like an assassin or anything. She's just actually I don't remember what her role is in any of this.
Roddy Tops, I don't know, prankster. So essentially, the way you meet Roddy Tops is you go to the Zombie Caravan, which is where this takes place, and it's basically a nomadic group of zombies.
Yeah,
you can only get to them when it's nighttime, and so you're essentially kind of moving in what is it, like second person mode, where basically you're right behind Shantae as you're moving from caravan to caravan, and you can enter in to each one and like talk to different people. So Roddy Tops is essentially just like Shantae's friend, and
that's right. Yeah.
So, but she's also kind of always trying to secretly like eat Shantae's brains, and she has to be like, oh wait, no, we're friends. Like, okay, or really just Shantae is like batting away at her, like, stop trying to eat my brains, that sort of thing. But they're best buds, and you learn a lot more about her in like the later games. Like I think it's Pirate's Curse, maybe.
Yeah, she's got like a brother that you have to, I think, help her.
Yeah, she has two brothers, Abner and Poe. Abner Cadaver and Poe. So you learn about them and everything, and they very much have that brotherly role, very kind of protective of Roddy Tops in a way. But you learn more about her as a character, like her origins, like who she was before she became a zombie, that sort of thing. But she's completely like, she's not like brains, like she actually has
coherent.
She is like a teenage girl, basically. Yes. like a late teens girl, talks to her friend, hangs out, there's, depending on the game, there's like these different things that you can do. And like in Pirate's Curse, you can use the wagon to travel through Spiderweb Island, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a cool track, and I definitely get spy vibes, but I was gonna say like it's more like jazzy.
Yeah,
that
it's only certain parts.
That like it's very it's kind of funk jazz. It sits somewhere between that era. It's like 70s into 80s. So I do kind of get that James Bond spy vibe a little bit, or even like those like B movies that are like spy movies, or like 70s kind of like that type of film.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about the plot and everything from the first Shantae next break. Let's get into your next pick.
Alrighty. So this is going to be also from the first Shantae, the Game Boy Color 2002 game. This is going to be Oasis Town, and of course composed by Jake Kaufman. Welcome back. That was Oasis Town from Shantae by Jake Kaufman.
Oh, I really like this one.
Me too.
I think this might be, of the 3 tracks that we've played so far, I think this is my favorite from the first Shantae.
First, really?
Yeah. I really love what Jake is doing more like later on in this track, when you've got those bouncing, panning.
Yeah.
It's almost like footsteps kind of going back and forth.
That's how I saw it too, actually. Yeah.
And the arpeggios, like, I was very impressed with this track, mostly because of that panning. It's a lot to handle to have that panning go back and forth, especially since you have to understand this was made for the Game Boy Color.
Right.
Like, this is not like something where it's a modern retro game that's, using all these like new tools and everything. This was made for the original handheld. It was a super late release.
Oh yeah.
This
2002.
was one of the last games produced. Capcom published it in North America at the very least. I'm not sure about Europe and Japan, but the game came out so late in the life cycle. In fact, they even added content in to the cartridge so that if you play it on a Game Boy Advance,
oh yeah,
because it came out like within a month or two of the game of the console being released.
Okay.
So like it was a very short amount of time in between. So it didn't sell very well, mostly because of that reason. That, and it had I'm pretty sure, a pretty low print run, which is why loose copies of it now go for like hundreds of dollars, like $500, $600, $700.
Wow.
Complete inbox copies go for thousands of dollars.
Jeez.
Yeah. Which is why it's been re-released both digitally and through Limited Run.
Right.
WayForward has a great relationship with Limited Run, where they're re-releasing all these games physically to get them in the hands of collectors and gamers alike.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. I really liked just the whole piece overall. There's some interesting parts that I can't actually tell if it was panning and there was just something weird going on with my headphones, or if it was meant to sound like this, but there's parts, particularly in the beginning, where it feels like the song is getting closer and farther away. Like the volume kind of crests and dips.
Yeah.
And it almost gives you a sense of movement in the song.
Yeah, I agree. In this game, Shantae has the ability to learn through the power of dance.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on what dance moves you can do with her, you can learn new transformation abilities. So she can transform herself into different types of animals, like monkeys that can climb on walls, elephant that you can like stomp and smash like boulders and like access new areas, spider, you can turn to a spider that will be able to access, by climbing webs and stuff like that. And a harpy that will allow you to fly midair. A lot of this game feels very reminiscent of Simon's Quest, in the sense that there are certain aspects of the game, or even Metroid, where there's certain aspects in the game where you cannot access them without like getting the harpy, for example.
Oh, yeah.
And so you'll be going, I remember the first time I played through this game, I didn't have the harpy transformation yet. And I'm like running all over the place trying to figure out where to go, not realizing that once I found the harpy spell, I could then go back to those other areas, and I would be able to find like the next dungeon in the clouds, basically. So yeah, and I guess it has a little bit of a Zelda vibe as well in that aspect, like getting new abilities and then being able to utilize those to access, dare I say, Metroidvania.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I'm trying to think of like whether it was really designed as a Metroidvania, and I don't know that it was.
Well, we used to call them platform adventure games, or search action is another.
Search action.
Search action is another one that people used. Yeah. So Uncle Mimic, Shantae's uncle, builds this steam engine, and Risky Boots ends up stealing it. So Shantae has to visit Bolo and Sky, and obviously Roddy Tops as well, to work with them to be able to gain access to these 3 different dungeons where she can get these 3 different stones. And then when she gets the 4th stone, she gets ambushed. And Risky takes all the stones at that point. Shantae finds her hideout, and essentially you had to destroy the weapon, which she's created with this steam engine called the Tinker Tank. Because she's in charge of all these characters called the Tinker Bats. They're like her little soldiers that Risky commands. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And you have to destroy this Mimic's steam engine, but you save the day, and that's really what matters. So that's basically the plot, and that's the overarching kind of ideal behind the plot of most of these games. Not all of them, but it's like Mimic makes something or is dealing with something and he needs something from Shantae. So she's got to go out and get all this different stuff and try to stop Risky Boots from, utilizing some of these inventions for her own gain.
Yeah.
She's trying to take over Sequin land.
So I never played the original. Does this one play at anything like Pirate's Curse? And by that I mean, I felt Pirate's Curse was to me, felt more like a Mega Man type game.
Okay.
Because you're choosing which levels to go to.
Yes.
Do you do that in this one too?
Not so much. That kind of started with Pirate's Curse and then really came to its own on Half-Genie Hero, which feels much more like a Mega Man game than like a Metroid. This is more like a Simon's Quest Metroid kind of
So it's
Zelda.
Like not open world, but like
kind of
an open map.
Open map in the sense that you can go left or you can go right when you exit the town. And so you're predominantly in like a side-scrolling platformer, action 2D platformer, where you're run around. Shantae uses her long purple hair to whip bad guys, very similar to Kabuki Quantum Fighter, if you've ever played that.
Yeah.
So that's what she does. She whips guys with her hair, guys.
Her hair back and forth.
She whips her hair back and forth.
Yes.
Thank you, Willow. She gets to a certain part of kind of overworld sort of thing where like she visits a town or visits the Caravan or whatever. And in that sense, it turns into like you're behind her. And when you move, she moves. I think it's the only game that does this, where you can move from like location to location. So if you need to visit the save room, you move to the save room. If you need to visit the Uncle Mimic shop, you go to his shop. If you need to go to the library, you go to the library. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And each location has its own little hub world that you can do that.
Okay.
So once you reach those areas, it will enter into that, and then you can do it. So, but hidden throughout like the hub areas are dungeons and stuff that you can access, depending. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's a well-designed game. The first game is a bit cryptic in a way because of, as I said, there's times where you'll be pulling your hair out, like, where do I go?
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, I'm dumb. I should have.
I go up.
I go up, or I need to use this ability this transformation dance to do that. So
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Looks like Genie is saying we've got a call coming in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it looks like we're getting a phone call. So let's go ahead and take that.
XVGM Radio, who's this? What can we play for you?
Did you order the crab legs?
Sorry, no? What?
The crab legs. Somebody called and ordered the crab legs. We have this order that's been sitting here for 35 minutes. You can't just call and order crab legs and not do anything with them.
Well, I don't think Mike, did you order crab legs?
Nah, I don't even eat crab.
Janine? No, I mean, I eat crab legs, but I didn't order them. I'll take them.
Well, we don't do delivery. Anyways, you need to pay me. How can we resolve this?
Well, I can't pay you, but I can play a song for you. This is a radio station. Is there a Shantae-related song you'd like to hear?
Well, I don't know. I guess you could play Through the Trees, which is one of my favorite lullabies that I would sing to my niece, Shantae.
What a coincidence. I think we can do that.
All right. Well, thanks, I guess.
Goodbye!
I don't know who this guy is. Do you know who this guy is?
Never heard that voice in my life.
All right. Well, let's play Shantae Risky's Revenge. The DSi release on 2010 was the year it came out. Through the Trees is the name of the track, and it's by Jake Kaufman. right. Well, it turns out that was Uncle Mimic himself, believe it or not. I thought, I thought that was a little odd. We had to call back and figure out what the whole thing was with the crab legs.
Yeah, because now I'm hungry.
Yeah, and I didn't know that Uncle Mimic had a crab leg shop. That's interesting. Yeah. Shantae Risky's Revenge was the game that we just played a track from. The DSi released game came out in 2010. This is Through the Trees, and again by Jake Kaufman. What do you think of this one?
So all I could think of was, do you remember in the 90s, usually like late at night, there were these commercials that would come on?
Pure Moods?
Pure Moods,
yes.
and like Enya. And
very ethereal.
Yeah, this wasn't quite ethereal, but it gave me that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
I was like, this feels very kind of relaxing and almost new agey. This is very much mood music. Like,
yeah.
I think it went on a little too long. There's only so long I can actually be in one of those unless I'm like trying to like meditate or like I'm trying to do something. But when I'm normally like listening to music, I'm expecting something more like actiony and especially from a Shantae game. So
yeah.
I was kind of surprised to hear something like this from a game that I know is often very action driven.
This was a track that plays during a forest area. It's, I think, one of the first areas that you go into after you leave the town, and it is very chill. It is very like, I mean, yeah, you're going around whipping like spiders and stuff like that, but it's just a very relaxing kind of vibe that this track gives off, which is very different to hear this as a opening or not quite opening track in regards to the game. So I think it's a little off in that aspect, like, but at the same time I'm getting some serious like Donkey Kong Country vibes from this. For sure, this could have been in like the third Donkey Kong Country game without a doubt in my mind.
Don't you historically hate that game?
I do, but the music's great.
Oh, fair.
I mean, you can't deny, Evelyn Fisher did most of the soundtrack on that, and it's or Evelyn Novakovic, as she, I believe, is now known. Yeah. If I was to pick this track instead of Mimic picking the track, I would say that it was a good pick because it kind of separates from the more dancey, rocky kind of in atmosphere that most of the other tracks give off. Shantae has a quite wild range of music. It's a lot of variety, a lot of different types of music. Every kind of like genre is an influence, and I think that's partly speaking to Jake Kaufman's incredible composition style. He just has this ability to channel every genre of music. It doesn't matter what it is, and turn it into video game music. So,
okay, yeah.
I don't know. I love this track, and the game itself is a lot of fun. This was kind of born out of what was to be Shantae Advance. So basically, after Shantae came out, they started working on Shantae Advance. And from what I understand, they also were potentially going to make it on the GameCube. And like, there was just so many avenues that they tried to go at to try to make this game. But because the first didn't sell well, nobody wanted to publish it. So it just didn't get a publisher. And then when DSi hit, they realized, we can release it on the DSi as an indie title because Nintendo was just starting to get into the digital revolution of just digital games.
Yeah.
So they released this game on the DSi, and it was basically trapped on all DSi's and 3DS's until they were later like, hey, let's port this to every other modern console.
Yeah.
Which is what they did. I will say that there's one part in this level, this area, if I recall, that is very difficult. In this one, you can press up or down to almost like in Rambo on the NES, where you can like go forwards or backwards in terms of like level. Layers. So that's probably the best word for it, is layers. Like you press up and you can move up, or you press down and you can move back to the previous layer. And man, there's this one part where you've got to get to this house, this like little cottage, and it is so difficult to find for some reason. I don't know why, but like it's just very difficult to progress in that. That's one of those where do I go kind of moments. But other than that, once I got past that, this game was fairly easy. A decent challenge, but like,
Nice.
Yeah, it's a cool game. So, but now you picked a track from it as well. So let's hear what you picked.
Yeah, while we're on the subject of Risky's Revenge, let's listen to ORLY, YARLY by Jake Kaufman.
That's not how you say it.
No, it's not, but we'll talk about it when we come back.
All right.
welcome back. That was from Shantae Risky's Revenge, the 2010 DSi release composed by Jake Kaufman. And that track was As Written, ORLY, YARLY, or As Intended. Oh, really?
Yeah, really. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jake Kaufman was a viewer of 4chan because that's where that came from.
Something Awful, actually.
Oh, Something Awful?
Yep. Yeah,
interesting.
That meme was charted from the Something Awful website in 2003. So,
okay.
But Jake Kaufman, very obviously a meme lord here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I am almost 99% positive that this is Uncle Mimic's track. Like when you go into his shop, I'm pretty confident that this is it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's that makes sense. This kind of feels like shop music. It's a little bit shorter of a track than some of the other ones on the soundtrack. But yeah, very, very playful. A small part of the reason that I actually picked it. The larger part is definitely the name.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But I also like that it's got, in with all that playfulness and very much, it feels like a Western composed song, but they sneak in some of the Middle Eastern sound in there a little bit.
I was going to say that exactly.
I really liked.
Yeah, those Arabian vibes kind of mixed with that like xylophone kind of style was really cool.
Those what? Those Arabian vibes.
Oh, boo.
All right, yeah, no, you said it, not me.
Stop it. Oh, man, I need a new co-host.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Say hello to our new co-host, Janine. Just kidding, Janine. I'd never traded in Justin for you.
Ooh, ow.
Sorry. You're a producer. Get back in your hole.
You do good for your hole. All right, anyway.
Anyways, Shantae Risky Revenge, the sequel to the original Shantae. Obviously, again, risky.
Well, the sequel to the unreleased sequel, technically.
Yes. Basically, they shopped around this idea for 8 years and couldn't get it done. So they were like, oh, let's just do this instead. Yeah. This is definitely considered a more Metroidvania style game. Shantae still tries to use transformation spells, which you use by performing belly dance. You can turn into the different animals with different abilities.
Same animals?
Some were the same, like the monkey, for example. There were some new ones, like the mermaid. The elephant returned. Those sort of things. You can get all different ability upgrades and stuff, which you could get in the first one as well. Like you can get hair shampoo or something like that, and like it would make your hair whip quicker, that sort of thing.
Oh.
So
almost like the whip upgrades in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. There's a new Game Plus mode in this one, which is a little bit different. So you can replay the game with higher magic.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. But you'll still be weak. Like you'll have the same amount of like health in terms of like where you started, but your magic abilities will be higher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The DSi version of this will allow you to play with additional gems if you have Mighty Flip Champs, which was one of their other games.
Oh.
One of the other Way Forward games. So kind of like a reward for, having that. So it's kind of neat. The storyline in this one is, we'll keep it simple, basically. She's lost her guardian genie abilities. Basically, she gets fired by the mayor. The mayor's terrible, by the way. He's like the worst, laziest mayor. He's awful. But Mayor Scuttlebutt, that's his name, I swear.
Oh, yeah.
He fires her as the town guardian just because Risky Boots arrived and stole a lamp, like a special lamp. So now that she's fired, she's like, well, I'm still going to take responsibility for what happened and try to go after her. So she does that and basically saves the day once again. There is a evil Shantae known as Nega Shantae, channeling some Darkwing Duck vibes there.
Just going to say.
Yep. It's interesting because Shantae is, in terms of the influences for the series in general, we talked about Zelda, Mega Man, Castlevania, Aladdin, all that stuff. Ranma Half is also a inspiration. Yeah. Heavy influence from what I understand, like the anime aspects of Shantae, which there's a very heavy anime vibe.
Oh, gotcha.
And then others like some Hayao Miyazaki films, stuff like Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, and obviously like 80s cartoons, stuff like DuckTales and whatnot. Yeah. There's even in, I think it's Pirate's Curse, there's a character that's a very clear ripoff of He-Man. He's called like He-Bro or something like that.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've played, but yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. Huh. That's about it. There's not too much to talk about more as far as Risky's Revenge, but we got another track coming to you from a different game.
Yeah, moving on in the series.
Yeah, so we're moving from Risky's Revenge to the later sequel. So Risky's Revenge did pretty well for Way Forward. The game sold a little bit better, so they were able to start self-producing these games now that, indie games were able to be created and sold. Right. And there was a demand for it. The series was starting to become a little bit more popular. So Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is our next game. This came out on the Wii U and the 3DS in 2014. This track is Trip Through Sequin Land, and it's by, again, Jake Kaufman. Oh man, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, or as the introduction is done in the game, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse.
I love that opening.
Yeah. The Wii U and 3DS game, which came out in 2014, that was Trip Through Sequin Land, and that was by Jake Kaufman. Man, I love this song.
Same.
So good.
This is a very good pick.
Yeah, it's amazing. Man, where to start? I will say, right before the loop, Jake tosses in what I like to call the 70s disco funk spin.
Okay.
Which I think I talked about when I brought up Dalmatian Station, which was a Mighty Switch Force track from, I think, the second game. I'm pretty sure I played it on this podcast at some point in time. But there's this kind of like swirling moment where if I was wearing a dress and I was spinning all around under a disco ball with my arms wide out, like, and it's that part where it's like da 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 da. That whole part, you just have this vibe like, I'm the belle of the ball. Like, that's just the vibe that I get from this track. for that particular part, that really, really stands out to me. There's also these really impressive note bends that really kind of give it that like oboe clarinet kind of flair.
Oh yeah.
Where you get these like little like honk bends is the only way that I can think of to explain it. Honk bends. It's like, you know, like it sounds like the actual instrument that it's supposed to sound like, which is cool.
Right. And that's one of the things that I was going to mention as well. A significant jump in audio quality.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, from the DSi, which I don't think the DSi was particularly limited in what it could do audio-wise, but I'm guessing that because they, you know, it was kind of their first alone indie production, they had to, you know, go with what they could do. But I love the immediate detail of the audio quality on this is so much better. The production value on this is so much better. The things sound higher quality, and it's great.
Yeah, more processing power does wonders.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I also like the kind of jump to electronic. Like, we heard a little bit of change in sound style from the first one to the second game, and in this one, you know, we have some like nice electronic beats thrown in there. So we've kind of moved on from the techno of the early 2000s to not quite dubstep of the mid 2010s, but definitely, you know, electronic music was on the rise. And this is, I think, around the time when dubstep and that was starting to get popular anyway. So that whole scene is definitely more pronounced.
Yeah, well said. This track, I believe, is an opening track in terms of like levels. Like, I think it's one of the first tracks that you hear again, like in the game. But man, this whole game is, in my opinion, probably the best game of the series. But also, it just has this classic vibe. I remember when I beat the game the first time, sitting and watching the credits, it was the first time in a long time, probably since like the 90s, that like I really felt connected with the experience. I remember the first time when I beat like Legends of Zelda Link to the Past. That's kind of the vibes that I got from when I beat this game.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about the plot and everything. I figured we'd talk a little bit about Jake Kaufman.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a long resume here.
He does. Lots of games that he's worked on, mostly of which with Way Forward. So he started off, his first game was Tennis Master Series on Windows, actually, in 2001. But he worked on a bunch of Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games, doing stuff like Carnage Rally in 2002, which is more infamous for its box art. It's terrible box art than anything. Shantae obviously came out in 2002, and around that time he was doing stuff like pinball games like Hardcore Pinball.
I was going to say, that could have been on our last episode.
That's right. Scorpion King, Sword of Osiris, Legend of K, which was a PS2 game that came out in 2005. And then jumping ahead, he did the sound design for Scourge Hive, which was a Game Boy Advance and later DS game in 2006. You know, he just kind of did his thing, working mostly on like some licensed games like Dora the Explorer, Dora's World Adventure on the Game Boy Advance. He did Balls of Fury on the Nintendo DS, which was music programming and engineering. I think his star really kind of started to shine again on Contra 4. And not that I'm saying the music was bad, like his music was always good, but that was, I remember, when I started to take notice of him as a composer outside of Shantae. Being like, oh wow, this guy's done a bunch of other stuff, and wow, this Contra 4 game soundtrack is incredible. So that was a 2007 release.
I didn't realize that was actually developed by Way Forward.
Yep.
Published by Konami, obviously, but
yes.
I did not realize it was a Way Forward development.
Probably the best Contra game since the 90s, like Alien Wars and all that. So then later on did Red Faction Guerrilla in 2009. And Batman the Brave and the Bold, which has a great soundtrack on both the Wii and the DS, where he's credited as audio guy. And then after some other licensed stuff like Thor God of Thunder in 2011, he did the previous game that we talked about, Risky's Revenge. He did additional audio for stuff like Saints Row the Third. I mean, he's done so much stuff, indie stuff, big time stuff like Silent Hill Book of Memories, Retro City Rampage. That's another one that we talked about with Matt Creamer.
Yes.
Yeah. He did all the Mighty Switch Force games, to my knowledge. Double Dragon, Neon as well. Great soundtrack there. Blood Rain Betrayal, very underrated soundtrack. After Shantae Half-Genie Hero is when his stuff started to slow down in terms of releasing. I think he did like one or two other games. He did Shovel Knight, of course. That was the big one that he composed for. But yeah, after that, I think he just wanted to transition into more like production. So he's been doing more like production stuff than composing stuff these days. He's also known as Virt in the community.
VIRT.
Yes, and he's done a ton of game soundtracks that aren't game soundtracks, stuff that's a little bit more movie-esque or a little bit more out there in terms of, man, there's this FX series that he does. He does these albums called FX3, FX4, FX2. FX4 and 3 in particular, especially 4, is so good. Go check it out on his website. So yeah, FX4 is incredible. Really good stuff. He even opens it up with the HBO musical presentation like intro. You know that like when you watched HBO late at night, they do like, you know, that movie presentation song. He like did a chiptune version of that.
Okay,
so, yeah, pretty cool. Nice. All right. Well, it looks like we're getting a call on our Patreon hotline. So let's go ahead and take that call.
Yeah. XVGM Radio, you're on the air. Who is this and what can we play for you?
What's up, XVGM Radio? This is Jordan Davis here. Anthony's away camping but sends his regards. But I speak for both of us when I say a Shantae celebration wouldn't be complete without hearing Grave in the Grave, the best Shantae game, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. Backtracking is extra fun when you can look forward to great tunage with every revisit, am I right? Thanks, guys, and stay red to go.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And I gotta say, if you didn't pick this track, I would have, because I also love this track. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's hear it. This is Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, the Wii U 3DS game from 2014. Rave in the Grave, also known as Zombie Island, by Jake Kaufman.
Greetings, travelers. Welcome to the laborious laborings of my crabtastic laboratory. Here at Uncle Mimic's mystical shop of magic and scientific wonders, we sell genie lamps, tinker rats, relic hats, fishing caps, steam machines, dynamo schemes, library keys, black-eyed peas, love potions, pulpa oceans, metal armor, heart charmer.
Uncle!
Excuse me. What, Shantae? Can't you see I'm in the middle of a commercial, dear?
Table 5 wants more crab legs. Also, we're running low on fish and chips up front.
Right away, dear. Thank you. Well, I suppose I should come clean here. This is mostly just a seafood restaurant. Times were tough, what with the constant destruction of our town and the haphazard mayor we had. So, I decided to open up my shop to the public. The word got out that my steam machine made the most bomb-ass crab legs this side of Sequin land. So, Shantae's positive energy, gumption, and friends with tight-fitting clothes all came together to make my little shop become the best place for some crab grub. Ooh, that doesn't sound too scrumptious. Crab grub.
Uncle.
Oh, yes, the crab legs, I forgot. Oh. Anywho, we're here for all your magic and science-based needs.
And crab legs.
And crab legs. And remember, believe in magic, or I'll kill you.
Come on down to Sequinland's hottest spot on the boardwalk. Uncle Mimic's mystical shop of magic and scientific wonders and crab legs is open late so you can get your karaoke and drink on. All night long. Tuesday nights are our special all-you-can-eat crab legs, with Thursday nights serving up the hottest undead waitresses money and brains can afford. We are right next door to the eastern port of Sequinland. Tear up your Floridian ID and we'll give you 1 round of drinks on the house. Come on down. All right, that was Patreon pick by Jordan and Anson Davis, or at least Jordan Davis in Anson's stead. That was from Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, the 2014 Wii U and 3DS game Rave in the Grave, or Zombie Island is the name of that track that Jake Kaufman wrote.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, man. Love that bass line.
Yeah. I felt like this is a pretty bouncy track. Definitely felt a little bit more lighthearted than the other track that we heard, the Trip to Sequin Land.
Oh, yeah.
I liked it. Definitely preferred the other one, but this is a fun one.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites from the game.
This, I think, is another, like, zombie-themed part.
Yes.
Because this is Rave in the Grave, Zombie Island. So I'm pretty sure there's a part where you're, like, have to, I think, run with Roddy Tops in some way, shape, or form. I don't remember, but yeah, it's multiple games with Shantae where you're basically just doing something with Roddy Tops, where you're like either escaping from something or you need to get from point A to point B utilizing one of her vehicles or things like that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember, like, isn't it something like it's just her top half or something?
Yeah, or like her
like
head or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, with it, you got to get to like certain places. Yeah. It was a neat little part.
Yeah. Storyline wise, in terms of this game, this is basically after, spoiler alert, she loses her powers completely, and now she's just a human. She wakes up one day and she hears cannon fire, so she's like, what's going on? She finds out that the town has been taken over by this character named Ammo Baron, who, after Shantae and him have a bit of a brawl, she comes to find out that the mayor sold the town to Ammo Baron.
That's right.
Yes. So she goes home, and then she gets confronted by Risky Boots, who's like, you stole my henchman. Wait, what? I did what?
Yeah.
So you end up finding out that Risky now has lost her crew, or Tinkerbats, and they've been turned into these characters called Cacklebats. So Risky is like, hey, you need to help me. And essentially, Risky and Shantae are working together, where Shantae's getting all these different abilities and weapons and things from Risky that she's discovering that she's using throughout the game. So it's interesting because it's you're not just whipping bad guys, you're using all these other weapons and stuff. So
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was, again, like I hadn't played the other games, and so this was my introduction to it, and it was a lot of fun. It did remind me a bit of Mega Man. Not that that's bad or anything. It's just that was the feel that I got for it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the different locations. Like they each felt unique. I'm sure they did in the other games too, but it was fun because like I'm used to, like the Mega Man X games where, you go to each different Mavericks layer and, there's like an ice level and like a factory or a fire level. So like they each feel unique. For a game series that I always assumed just took place on like an island or something, each of these locations felt like they were a totally different area.
Yeah, this one has some different vibes to it. Each game kind of has different vibes as far as like hub worlds or getting from one place to another. The first game, it was more like adventure style in terms of like, as we said, Simon's Quest, Zelda, that sort of thing. And then in the second game, it was very much more like platform based. This game, as far as the hubs go, is totally different as well. So you're on, if I recall, you're on a ship and you're moving from island to island, kind of like trying to pick.
Oh, that's right.
Where
you
need to go.
Islands, more or less.
Yeah.
Forgot
So
about that.
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into the plot or anything like that, but essentially you're just collecting this magic, this dark magic that ends up turning to light magic. And then I think, if I recall, Shantae ends up, basically Shantae and Risky have this weird relationship where like they understand each other. So it's like she's a frenemy. Frenemy. Yeah, there you go. She gets her powers back, at least her Half-Genie powers back.
Right.
And that opens up the abilities to transform in the next game. So you are going back to like getting all those transformations and whatnot. But in this game, there are no transformations.
That's wild. So I played the one game where you don't do the thing you normally do.
Yeah. It's well worth checking out the transformations in the other games. They're a lot of fun, and it's, they're cool. I feel like Half-Genie Hero, there was a little bit too much of powers. Like there was just an insane amount of abilities that a lot of them kind of felt like, you don't really need this. But, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Yeah. So that's it. That's kind of how it goes. So Risky kind of returns to being a pirate, and Shantae goes back to being a Half-Genie Hero.
Exciting, which leads right into the next game, Shantae Half-Genie Hero.
Indeed, yeah. So this first pick that we're going to play is from that game, which came out on the Wii U, PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, PC, and Xbox One, all in 2015. This track is called Castle, and it is, again, by Jay Kaufman. Hey, you are back. I'm so glad you're back because we're going to talk about that amazing song that was from Shantae, Half-Genie Hero, Wii U, PS4, PlayStation Vita, PC, Xbox One, your grandma's Taurus. Yeah, you play it.
My grandma's not a Taurus.
No, like Taurus, like the car.
Oh, the Ford Taurus.
Yeah, 2015 was the year release. That was Castle by Jake Kaufman. I love this song.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, yeah.
The darker minor tones and the harpsichord, I'm just like, oh, he likes the Castlevania version of the Shantae song.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
pretty much. Jake Kaufman is a Castlevania fan. He's
doubt.
He's done different games with the stylized sound of Castlevania, so it's a kind of a no-brainer. He's a big Konami guy. In fact, he even did a Ninja Turtles game called Danger of the Ooze, I believe it was called, that's based on the 2012 Turtles series, and it has major influences from that first NES game.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. And there's some incredible music on that by Jake, so go check that one out. But yeah, this one for Half-Genie Hero, this song, man, where do I start? You already touched on the harpsichord, of course, but I would say, man, those dark pianos.
Yeah.
Like, you're a buzzy bass guy, I'm a dark piano guy. If you bring in like really kind of low end piano that sounds like an actual piano, that you can hear the hammer drop and you can hear like all of that, like dun 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 dun. Man, like that stuff gets my hair standing. Like, I love that kind of sound. The harpsichord elements are really cool too, and do bring like a nice classical kind of vibe, a very Baroque era vibe to this track, which makes sense because it takes place in one of the Baron's castles. There's like different barons that you have to visit throughout this game, so it's not just Ammo Baron. There's like another baron that you have to visit who's more of like a vampire kind of style. I can't remember his name or anything, and it's not that important, but yes, you're in his castle kind of going through, and this music is playing, and it's just incredible. All of the music in this game is top notch. I'd say, as much as I love Pirate's Curse and its soundtrack, I think Half-Genie Hero is the better of the two in terms of soundtrack. So yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, no, this was really fun. So they came out 2 years apart, which that's not a ton of time when you consider, the first game and the second game was 8 years. The second game and the third game was 4 years. So now they've done 2 years. And unfortunately, the next game did not come out 1 year later, because that would have been like the perfect having every time.
Sure. I mean, it takes a couple years for a Shantae game to come out, which makes sense. I get it. But it's a certified franchise at this point. It is the front runner for flagship titles for Way Forward.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But this one is very much more Mega Man oriented in terms of not only the transformations that feel very much like the weapons in Mega Man, where you have to transition between the two, sometimes like on the fly, where you're going from one to the other, very quickly. So it's a great game. Basically, as far as the story goes, Shantae is woken up by this voice that she follows, and she finds this secret cave, and there's the genie realm, and they're all like, hey, there's going to be this evil that's going to come, and only you can defeat it. But then she wakes up almost as if like, was it real? Was it a dream? That sort of thing. There's this thing called the Dynamo that Mimic is working on, and of course, Risky Boots steals the blueprints, so Shantae's got to chase after him to get it. There's all these other half-genies that you meet, which kind of transitions into the next game in a way, because you end up meeting up with all these like other genies. Oh. There's also DLC for this game, which came out, like, it took a little while for some of the DLC to come out. Either way, this was the final game that Jake worked on for Shantae, or at least to this date. So, way to go out with a bang.
Yeah,
right?
Seriously.
Yeah. But we got one more track for you from Half-Genie Hero.
Yeah. So I'm going to play Scuttletown. Again, this game came out in 2016 on a whole host of things, and was composed by Jake Kaufman. Hey there, you're back to this Shantae-focused episode. That was from Shantae, Half-Genie Hero, the 2016 release on the Wii U, PS4, PS Vita, PC, and Xbox One. Scuttletown was the name of that track, as composed by Jake the Kaufman.
This, I believe, is the town theme music. Yes.
Yeah, and this, so I kind of picked this one because, if I remember correctly, there is a Scuttletown theme in every game, because Scuttletown is in every game.
Yes.
So it's just something that I noticed we hadn't really touched on, and I'm trying to remember the Scuttletown theme from Pirate's Curse, and I feel like he keeps the theme the same through each game.
He does.
Kind of like upgrades it.
Yeah.
Which I like. That's kind of the way to do something. Like, you have the same location in every game. As a video game player and music enjoyer, I expect that track for that level to be the same in every game.
Yeah.
You know, upgraded is fine, but like, you know, you always get those classics like Bloody Tears and, and
like Burning Town.
And Burning Town.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. And Neo Burning Town is another example of that. It's a much more faster paced version of the song, much more techno influenced this time around in this game. And it's a great version, but, you know, I definitely wanted to pick the very first Burning Town as the choice version of that song. But yeah, this is probably the best version of Scuttletown.
Yeah. Like I said, I kind of remember it from Pirate's Curse, and not that it was bad, but like this definitely felt like an improved version.
Okay.
So,
have you played any of the other ones other than Pirate's Curse or no?
So I think I played a little bit of Half-Genie Hero and a little bit of Risky's Revenge. I just don't remember like, I remember Pirate's Curse because I played it through to the end. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't really play enough to remember the other ones. Half-Genie Hero, I really do want to grab. And in fact, if there is, you mentioned the Switch. I'm wondering if all of the games are available on the Switch in like some kind of a package that I can just get.
Sadly, no. Maybe digitally, but not physically. In
that's
fact,
what I meant, digitally.
Yeah, the physical versions of these games go for bananas money.
Not
like, because it's limited run. I remember I looked up the prices of the collector's edition of Pirate's Curse, which I grabbed at Too Many Games one year. They were at Too Many Games. So I saw it there. It was for sale for like retail price. I was like, ooh, I'm going to grab this. So I bought it. It was like 65 or 80 or whatever it was. Came with all the goodies. I think I looked it up not too long ago, and it's like an $800 thing.
Whoa.
Complete in box? Like, what? Why? It's a Shantae game. Like, come on. Like, okay, you get cool goodies, but like, come on, man. No game should be worth that much. But yeah, but what's good about Way Forward is that they do tons of sales on these games digitally, so you could always play them digitally for a fairly cheap price. As far as physical goes, they have been re-releasing the older games back on these newer consoles too. So if you missed out on like the Switch release or whatever, you could always get on like the PS5 and that sort of thing. So
and that's kind of what I'm looking for. Like there's not a lot that I seek out to get physically anymore. I've got enough stuff, and I'm okay with the digital revolution.
Sure.
If there's something that I really want to have physically, I will find it, and I'll go out looking for it. But
I will find you.
Yes. And I will play you.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, this game is great though. It's a lot of fun. Definitely does have some more Mega Man vibes than the other games, which isn't a bad thing. I think that's it's a neat little turn of events, but it's a fun one with great music. So
yeah, I like Mega Man too. So
yeah. Half-Genie Hero's a win for me. Yeah. So now we kind of move on to the final game that has been released as of 2023, and that is Shantae and the 7 Sirens. This came out on the iOS and Mac originally in 2019, and it later got brought over to other consoles, modern,
like
Switch,
2020, I think.
Xbox One. It's on everything, basically. Turbulent Hip Shake is the name of this track, and it is by Kentaro Sakamoto, Mark Sparling, Maddie Lim, Gavin Allen, and Alexander Aniel. Thanks for joining us back on our Shantae Tunes episode. That was Shantae and the Seven Sirens, the game that originally came out on the iOS and Mac in 2019, and everything else sometime later. Turbulent Hip Shake was the name of the track, and it was by Kentaro Sakamoto, Mark Sparling, Maddie Lim, Gavin Allen, and Alexander Aniel. I'm not sure who did what as far as the soundtrack goes, but man, I'm listening to this with a very jaded perspective just because I was so upset that Jake decided not to come back and do this one. And I don't know what the reason why. I don't remember. I do remember tweeting at him and being like, hey, are you doing Shantae 5 when it got announced? And no response, because I even emailed Jake for this episode and was like, hey, I'd love to have you on the show. Like, we'd love to have you on. And no response at this point in time. Maybe he'll respond later. I don't know. But he's a busy guy. I get it. You know?
Yeah.
Man, I was so bummed when I found out that, because his music just fit so perfectly with these games. Like, I just couldn't picture the games without his music. So I remember I did get the game when it came out. Like, I ordered the physical through Limited Run. I started playing it, and I really enjoyed the game in and of itself, just because it's a Shantae game. It feels like a Shantae game. It plays like a Shantae game, but it didn't sound like a Shantae game to me initially. But going back and listening to the music separate from the experience, I really enjoyed this track.
This was fun. It was very high energy. And I mean, another kind of, going from one game to another, there's a bit of a departure. In this case, the departure is the musical artist. So there's that. But, I thought they did some fun things with the stereo effects there. So doing some of the, like the gallop back and forth.
Yeah.
And like I said, the one thing that really stands out to me is just like how high energy this song is. And for what we've played on the show so far, my first kind of question is like, is this a Shantae song? Like, yes, it is. It is from a Shantae game.
Yeah.
But likely due to the fact that it has different composers, it's not bad in any way, but it doesn't feel like it fits in quite so much. Like, I'm not hearing any like Middle Eastern things thrown in there.
I got a little bit of a Middle Eastern vibe with this one. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it wasn't as prominent as it is with the other games, of course, but I did definitely feel a little bit of Arabian vibes. Arabian vibes.
There you go.
Yeah, with I had to do it too. So I felt a little bit of that. I love those arpeggios; those are great, and I do also love the panning back and forth. That kind of whirring, like wah 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 wah. It's a very like modern kind of chip tune.
That's
sound
what I was going to say.
It. Yeah. So this feels like it would be in a game that's not a Shantae game, but it still fit for the most part. Felt like kind of like a belly dance kind of track, that sort of thing.
Now, this game isn't like 8-bit or 16-bit, right? Like, it's a pixel.
It is more in line with Pirate's Curse, I'd say, in terms of the visual style than Half-Genie Hero, if I recall. Half-Genie Hero was an HD game. Like, it was a fully realized, like 2D sprite based, but still like they did a tremendous job on the visuals that look very hand painted. Whereas this feels a little bit more of like a cheaper return to form for like more Pirate's Curse style. I'm wondering if maybe like they just used the Pirate's Curse style and just like kind of vamped it up a little bit so that it had a little bit more flourish. It's also been a while since I played this game. This is the only Shantae game I haven't beaten, just because I started playing it, got distracted, moved on to something else. But it's a fun game. The plot for this one is Shantae is invited to this island called Paradise Island by the mayor of this place called Arena Town. And there's this thing called the Half-Genie Festival that's being held. And there she meets a bunch of different Half-Genies at the performance. And they're supposed to all perform at the festival, but then all the other ones are kidnapped. And so she's got to start exploring the area to try to find all the different ones. She obviously thinks initially that it's Risky Boots, and that's kind of as far as I've gotten, so to speak. So, but yeah, pretty neat, nice way to introduce the story and kind of like get it out from Sequin land, so that you're not just in this like little tiny area. Kind of like expanding the horizons. Anyways, that's about it as far as initially Shantae and the Seven Sirens. We'll talk a little bit more about it after we talk about these composers. Kentaro Sakamoto, this is his only game that he's worked on so far. Mark Sparling started off with Bad Sector in 2015 on the Windows. XOB on the iPhone, and then A Short Hike in 2019 on Linux. Then did this game, and then A Monsters Expedition Through Puzzling Exhibitions, and Cursed to Golf, which came out in 2022. We'll tackle the other two after we talk about Maddie Lim on this break, so we'll talk about them on the other two on the next break.
Yes.
Maddie Lim only did this game, Vitamin Connection, which she did, I believe, also with Jake Kaufman, and River City Girls Zero, where she did additional programming.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move into the last track of this episode. This is going to be, obviously, from Shantae and the Seven Sirens. This is Off to the Squidsmith by Kentaro Sakamoto, Mark Sparling, Maddie Lim, Gavin Allen, and Alexander Aniel. All right, that is it. No more music after this.
Good night, everybody.
That was Off to the Squidsmith from Shantae and the Seven Sirens, the 2019 iOS Mac game that came out in 2020 and everything else. Kentaro Sakamoto, Mark Sparling, Maddie Lim, Gavin Allen, and Alexander Aniel are the people that worked on this. And I really liked this piece for a couple of reasons. The overall bits about it, just like the steam and the clanging metal and everything, kind of gave me steampunk vibes. It also, so you want to talk about Vert here. This feels like they were channeling some of the stuff that he was doing in Shovel Knight.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. My biggest issue with this track, and really this entire soundtrack, is it's got the opposite problem of what Mega Man 11 had. Where Mega Man 11 had great compositions, but I really just wanted it to be 8-bit. It just needed to be 8-bit or have an 8-bit rendition. They did like a DLC piano simplified version of the soundtrack. I was like, no. Just give me an 8-bit version of the soundtrack, because the compositions are great, but they really needed that 8-bit touch to them to really make them sound really bumpin' and fast. And, they needed that. Because otherwise they just all sound kind of samey, and the tones are very kind of blah, like very blasé. This game has the opposite problem. It needed to not channel chiptune. I think going back to that chiptune sound really hampered the experience of the soundtrack, because I love the more modern aspects of that steampunk kind of vibe with the hammering and the steam pushing out and all that. All of that was really cool. And I wanted to hear more of that tone and sound. And much like on the previous track as well, the chiptune just feels like it doesn't belong in this game. Like, I feel like what they should have done is go with a much more modern sound to it to match the more updated graphics. And slight clarification, I said that the visuals were like a downgrade. In fact, that's the opposite. Again, it's been a while since I played this game. It was 2D hand-painted artwork designed for 4K resolution.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so this was like an actual graphical upgrade.
Yep. And they had animated cutscenes too, which were, of course, voiced. Shantae has been voiced for a number of years by Christina V. I believe her name is Venezuelan now. Her last name, like, she's going by her full, like, original last name instead of just like the
V.
Hollywood V kind of thing. Which, she's got a great voice, great vocals. She also does Miraculous Ladybug and numerous other people.
That's interesting. So knowing that, I would lean more towards agreeing with you, where as far as getting away from the chiptune stuff, like I felt like if the graphics had taken a bit of a downgrade, then I actually think that the music here makes sense. And on its own, so again, having not played the game, I don't know how I would feel hearing this while playing whatever it is I'm playing. But in general, I actually do like the mixture or the combination of chiptunes with modern music in general. And in this one, I actually really liked the interplay between like the realistic, metal hammer and steam and all those sounds with the chiptunes itself.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the melody. Like it. So aside from just like that steampunk aesthetic that I was getting from like the steam and everything else, and like feeling like the music was almost a kickback to something from Shovel Knight, I got kind of like not a playful vibe from the melody here, but almost like getting stuff done. Like this feels almost like it would be a cutscene or like a montage of like making the weapons, making the donuts. And like getting ready to venture out or something.
So there's kind of a good reason for that. In this game, much like in Half-Genie Hero, your life bar can be increased when you collect these squid characters.
Okay.
These little baby squids. So you bring them to a person. In the Half-Genie Hero, it's like a woman that she's like the blacksmith or the squid smith maybe. And I don't know if that character comes back for this game. I can't remember. But yeah, off to the squid smith, you're going to the squid smith basically to give them the squids, if I recall. And that's how you end up like improving your life, like getting more hearts onto your life bar or whatnot. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, but this game does return back to the more Metroidvania kind of aspects of the franchise. So it kind of steps back from the path that it was on with Half-Genie Hero, that more Mega Man aspect. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's much more like the first 3 games in the series. So. Yeah, and that brings us to the end of discussing at least the plot and the characters and everything for the game. But we got 2 more composers to talk about.
Yeah, so Gavin Allen just has a couple of things. They did sound effects on Oregon Trail 40th Anniversary, They did production on Destiny 2. They composed on The Mummy Demastered in 2017, and their most recent credit is for this in 2019.
Yes.
So Alexander Aniel started out doing Spider Soars in 2019. They were a sound producer. They did music composition on this, and most of their other credits are production for Panzer Dragoon and Streets of Rage 4, both in 2020.
Yeah. And that's about it as far as Shantae goes.
That is all she wrote.
Yeah. I love the games and the soundtracks and everything. So it's just, I really do need to get back into this game, the 7 Sirens, because it was fun. I remember really enjoying the game, and now I kind of want to go back and play all the Shantae games. Thanks, Justin.
Anytime. This definitely makes me nostalgic for Pirate's Curse, and I want to go back and play that. And hearing some of the music and hearing more about the gameplay and the stories in these other games, I definitely want to go and give them a shot too. So hopefully I can find them for download.
Yeah, you'll be able to, trust me. All right, so now is the time of the podcast where we pick our favorite track, which is going to be very, very difficult because there's so much amazing music in this. But Justin, what was your favorite song?
I think your trip through Sequin Land was actually a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed that one. So I think I'm going to go with that one. And only very closely following up with Rave in the Grave, Jordan Nansen Davis's pick. That was also fantastic. Like I said, if they didn't pick it, I would have.
The Castle track got me. That is such an amazing song, and I remember playing it over and over and over again via the soundtrack, the physical soundtrack that I got with the game when I got the physical soundtrack. So I just remember playing that song over and over and over again, especially after playing through the game and beating it. That was always the one that I returned to the most frequently. But secondary was, of course, Trip Through Sequin Land. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, both tracks were really phenomenal. But man, I got to give a shout out to your Oasis soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
That really it brought me back, and I was like, oh, man, this was a really good song. Like, man, first Shantae game had some great music, too. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Cam Worma, Jordan and Anson Davis, Rage Cage, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Scott McElhone, Chris Myers, Brad Austin, Chris Murray, Llama Adam, Marcus Stewart, Nick Davis, and Ryan McPherson.
If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/XVGMradio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you at the end of the show and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
If you've liked what you've heard, please consider giving us a review on iTunes.
You can join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at facebook.com/groups/xvgmradio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks, or just talking about the podcast itself.
You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle on both of those sites is @XVGMradio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
So before we talk about coming back with a new episode, Justin, we have some stuff that's happening. First of which, I will be at Retro World Expo the final weekend of August. So that is the 26th and 27th. So if you're in the Connecticut area, stop down to the Hartford Convention Center, and you can pick up a sticker, probably a card. I think we'll have some merch for sale. Justin won't be able to attend. He'll be out of state doing James Bond-like things or whatever it is Justin does on the weekends.
If I told you, I'd have to kill you.
So yeah, come down and check that out. I'll have a panel that I'm going to be doing as well. It's Castlevania related, surprise, but yeah. So 26th and 27th of August. Definitely join us for that.
So we'd also normally talk about the other things happening in the month of August, but just in the way that things got scheduled, we did our XVGM After Dark on the 8th. You can still check that out if you missed it. Just go to twitch.tv/shock83j16, and the VODs stay up for a few months anyway.
Yeah.
So you should be able to check that out. And then our XVGM live show for patrons, $1 tier and up, would have just been this past Sunday on the 13th. So we'll figure out what's going on in September and message out in the Discord there.
Yeah.
If any of that stuff is happening before the regular monthly podcast episode drops.
Right, and just so everyone knows, going forward, Sunday will be our day of choice for live shows. So if Friday didn't work for you, you can check us out on Sundays. Now, Sunday evenings, we'll, of course, do our best to communicate that to you early on so you can join us, hopefully. Next up, for episode 105, Justin, what are we coming back with?
So, episode 105, we are coming back to the world of Natsume with a musical history of Natsume part 3.
Yeah, and most likely this is going to close out the Natsume discussion for the year. We've talked a bunch about Natsume doing a part 1 and part 2 on this company, their legacy musically, and so we'll be wrapping up with part 3.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, this is Mike.
And Justin.
Signing off for XVGM Radio.
Yeah,
Let's hear what you picked.
Yeah, while we're on the subject of Risky's Revenge, let's... Sorry. I just looked at what I picked and went, oh, that's right.
Yes.
Let's listen to ORLY YARLY